Prayer. An article from Charles Fillmore. Seers, prophets, preachers, and holy men and women of all ages are a unit in saying that they have become acquainted with God through prayer, expressed in the spirit of the mind. This testimony of his spiritual presence is so unanimous that no one seeks God's help in any way other than through the spirit of the mind. And the fact that we know God with our minds and not with our senses proves that God is spirit. In its higher functioning, the mind of man is composed of spiritual ideas, and we can truthfully say that man is a spiritual being. This fact explains the almost universal worship of God by man, and makes possible the conjunction of the heaven and the earth by those who understand the underlying laws of prayer. Jesus stated this emphatically in John 4 verse 24, "God is spirit, and they that worship him must worship in spirit and truth." Then the real foundation of all effective prayer is the understanding that God is spirit and that man, his offspring, is his image and likeness, hence spiritual. This concept of God gives man a point of contact that is never absent. In all places and under all conditions, he has the assurance of the attention and help of God when he realizes the Father's spiritual presence and comradeship. When it has a spiritually poised mind to work through, spirit is not limited in its power by any material environment. All things are possible with God. To make this strong statement of Jesus come true, we must study the laws of God and strive to carry them out through a quickened consciousness. The Bible is replete with situations where men and women seemed beyond any material help, but who, through faith and prayer, triumphed right in the face of seemingly insurmountable obstacles. In the 11th chapter of Hebrews, Paul builds pyramids of faith demonstrations. Hear the climax. "And what shall I more say? For the time will fail me if I tell of Gideon, Barak, Samson, Jephthah, of David and Samuel and the prophets who through faith subdued kingdoms, wrought righteousness, obtained promises, stopped the mouths of lions, quenched the power of fire, escaped the edge of the sword, from weakness were made strong, waxed mighty in war, turned to flight armies of aliens." Paul might have added to his pyramid of faith the long list of miraculous healing of diseases and many superhuman works recorded in the Bible, among which are the restoration of the leper Naaman and the resurrection of the Shunammite's son, by Elisha, the control of the elements, by Elijah, the overcoming of gravity, in floating from the bottom of the Jordan the workman's axe head, by Elisha, causing water to gush from the rock, by Moses, and numerous other proofs of the Spirit of God acting through man. The majority of people think that great spiritual faith is necessary to get marvelous results. But Jesus taught differently. The apostles said unto the Lord, "Increase our faith." And the Lord said, "If ye had faith as a grain of mustard seed, ye would say unto this sycamine tree, Be thou rooted up, and be thou planted in the sea, and it would obey you." The mustard is the smallest of all seeds, and the comparison would indicate what a tiny bit of real faith is necessary to move upon material things. Paul and Silas in the Roman jail prayed and sang until their bonds fell off. The doors flew open, and they walked forth free men. On the day of Pentecost, the followers of Jesus prayed and sang until the ethers were so accelerated that tongues of fire flashed from the bodies of the worshippers, and they were miraculously quickened in mental ability. Prayer liberates the energies pent up in the soul, and those who pray much create a spiritual aura that eventually envelopes the whole body. The bands of light painted by artists around the heads of saints are not imaginary. They actually exist and are visible to the sharp eye of the painter. The scripture testifies in Luke 9-29 that when Jesus was praying, his countenance was altered, and his raiment became white and dazzling. After Moses had been praying on the mountain, his face shone so brightly that the people could not look upon it, and he had to wear a veil. Thus prayer is obviously dynamic and moves upon the spiritual ethers that interpenetrate all substance. Prayer is related directly to the creative laws of God, and when man adjusts his mind and body in harmony with those laws, his prayers will always be effective and far-reaching. That activity of the mind which is named the understanding is essential in righteous prayer. Spirit is omnipresent, but the individual consciousness gives it a local habitat and a name. If in thinking about God we locate him in a faraway heaven and direct our thoughts outwardly in the hope of reaching him, all our force will be driven from us to that imaginary place, and we will become devitalized. The kingdom of God is within you. The pivotal point around which spirit creates is within the structure. This is true of the primal cell as well as of the most complex organism. The throne upon which the divine will sits is within man's consciousness, and it is to this inner center that he should direct his attention when praying or meditating. David called this spiritual center of the soul the secret place of the Most High, and all the defense and power of the 91st Psalm is promised to the one who dwells in the consciousness of the Almighty within. Paul says in 1 Corinthians 3 verse 16, "Know ye not that ye are a temple of God, and that the Spirit of God dwelleth in you?" In the 6th chapter of Matthew, Jesus, in giving his disciples directions for prayer, called attention to the God center in man in these words, "But thou, when thou prayest, enter into thine inner chamber, and having shut thy door, pray to thy Father who is in secret, and thy Father who seeth in secret shall recompense thee." Phi also told them not to use vain repetitions, for your Father knoweth what things ye have need of, before ye ask him. If divine mind knows our needs, why should we have to ask to have them supplied? We do not ask, expecting God to hand us the things we want, but we realize that he has made provision in the very nature of things for our every need to be fulfilled. When we realize this and go about our work in perfect confidence, the fulfillment of the divine law of support and supply is often demonstrated in ways we had not even dreamed of. Do not supplicate nor beg God to give you what you need, but get still and think about the inexhaustible resource of the infinite mind, and that it is present in all of its fullness and always ready to manifest when its laws are complied with. This is what Jesus meant when he said, "Seek ye first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you." We all need a better understanding of the nature of God, so that we may comply with the laws under which he creates. As you will see in the marginal notes of the American version of the New Testament, God is spirit. Spirit is not located in a big man called God, but is everywhere the breath of life and the knowing quality of mind active in and through all bodies, over all, and through all, and in all. The highest form of prayer is to open your mind and quietly realize that the one omnipresent intelligence knows your thoughts and instantly answers, even before you have audibly expressed your desire. This being true, you should ask, and at the same time give thanks that you have already received. Jesus expressed this idea in Mark 11-24, "Therefore I say unto you, all things whatsoever ye pray and ask for, believe that ye receive them, and ye shall have them." Before he broke the miraculously multiplied loaves and fishes and fed the 5,000, he looked up to heaven and gave thanks. When he raised Lazarus, he first said, "Father, I thank thee that thou heardest me, and I knew that thou hearest me always." Then he commanded Lazarus to come forth. We observe that all things come out of the formless, but our knowledge of the invisible is so limited that we do not conceive of its infinite possibilities. When we think or silently speak in the all-potential ethers of spirit, there is always an unfailing effect. "Whatsoever ye have said in the darkness shall be heard in the light, and what ye have spoken in the ear in the inner chambers shall be proclaimed upon the housetops." Silent prayer is more effective than audible, because by silent prayer the mind comes into closer touch with the creative spirit. James says, "The prayer of faith shall save him that is sick, and the Lord shall raise him up." Countless thousands are applying this faith prayer today and are being healed as they were in the time of Jesus. The strange thing is how this very important proof of the Spirit's work in Christian healing should have been neglected for so many hundred years when Jesus gave it as one of the signs of a believer. "These signs shall accompany them that believe. In my name shall they cast out demons. They shall speak with new tongues. They shall take up serpents, and if they drink any deadly thing, it shall in no wise hurt them. They shall lay hands on the sick, and they shall recover." The history of the Christian church records that for over 300 years of its early activity, the followers of Jesus healed the sick by prayer, and that healing was gradually dropped as the church became prosperous and worldly. In the 11th century, a monk from a distant province was being shown, by a cardinal, the riches of the Vatican at Rome. The cardinal said, "The church can no longer say, 'Silver and gold have I none.'" "No," said the monk, "neither can it say, 'Take up thy bed and walk.' It is found by those who have faith in the power of God that the prayer for health is the most quickly answered. The reason for this is that the natural laws that create and sustain the body are really divine laws. And when man silently asks for the intervention of God in restoring health, he is calling into action the natural forces of his being. Doctors agree that the object of their remedies is to quicken the natural functions of the body. But medicine does not appeal to the intelligent principle that directs all the activities of the organism, hence it fails to give permanent healing. However, a conscious union with the natural life forces lying within and back of all the complex activities of man gets right at the fountainhead, and the results are unfailing if the proper connection has been made. The first step in the prayer for health is to get still. Be still and know that I am God. To get still, the body must be relaxed and the mind be quieted. Center the attention within. There is a quiet place within us all, and by silently saying over and over, "Peace, be still," we will enter that place, and a great stillness will pervade the whole man. Then, whatsoever ye shall ask in my name, that will I do, that the Father may be glorified in the Son. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, saith Jehovah. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. This verse from Isaiah 55 gives us an insight into the difference between the mortal thinker and the divine. The divine mind is serene, orderly, and placid, while the mortal mind is turbulent, discordant, and violent. One readily understands from this comparison why we do not get the divine guidance, even though we strive never so hard for it. The best of us have an undercurrent of worry that breaks the even flow of God's thoughts into our consciousness. Jesus warned his followers not to be anxious about what they should eat, drink, or wear. In all literature, there is no finer comparison than that given by Jesus when he pointed to the flowers and said, "Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They toil not, neither do they spin. Yet I say unto you, that even Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these. If God so clothes the grass, shall he not much more clothe his children?" This argument holds good in all human needs. There is a natural law whose chief purpose is to take care of the human family. But the divine order of the creative mind must be observed by man before he can receive the benefits of his natural inheritance. Metaphysicians, who study the mind and its many modes of action, find that when they refuse to let worry, anxiety, or other distracting thoughts act in their minds, they gradually establish an inner quietness that finally merges into a great peace. This is the peace of God, which passeth all understanding. When this peace is attained, one gets inspirations and revelations direct from infinite mind. Any method that will hush the external thought clamor will make unity with the inner peace. When we are in peaceful sleep, the outer crust of thought is stilled, and the great spirit of the universe often communicates its higher wisdom to the inner consciousness of man. The ancient people seem to have been more open than moderns to revelations in sleep. So long ago that history has no record of the race to which he belonged, nor the age in which he lived. Job wrote in the 33rd chapter of his book, "In a dream, in a vision of the night, when deep sleep falleth upon men, in slumberings upon the bed, then he openeth the ears of men, and sealeth their instruction." It is written in 1 Kings, chapter 3, that the Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream and said, "Ask what I shall give thee." Solomon did not ask for riches nor honor, nor for the glory which kings usually seek, but in meekness he asked the Lord to give him an understanding heart, that he might discern between good and evil and be a wise judge of his people. Riches and honor followed, of course, as they always do when one is earnestly striving to be honest and just in all ways. We get our most vivid revelations when we are in a meditative state of mind. This proves that when we make our minds trustful and confident, we synchronize with the creative mind. Then, its force flows to us in accordance with the law of like attracting like. The agonizing, supplicating, begging prayer is not answered, because the thoughts are so turbulent that divine mind cannot reach the pleader. Jesus prayed with a confident assurance that what he wanted would be granted, and he established a prayer standard for his followers that will never fail, if the same conditions and relations are attained and maintained with the Father mind. Through his spiritual attainments, Jesus formed a spiritual zone in the Earth's mental atmosphere. His followers make connection with that zone when they pray in his name. He stated this fact in John 14:2, "I go to prepare a place for you." Simon Peter said, "Lord, whither goest thou?" Jesus answered him, "Where I go, you can't follow me now, but you shall follow afterward." When Jesus had purified his body sufficiently, he ascended into this place in the spiritual ethers of our planet. In our high spiritual realizations, we make temporary contact with him and his spiritual character, represented by his name. But we, like the disciples, are not yet able to go there and abide, because we have not overcome earthly attachments. We shall, however, attain the same freedom and spiritual power that he attained if we follow him in the regeneration. We should clearly understand, however, that we cannot go to Jesus' place through death. We must overcome death as he did before we can be glorified with him in the heavens or higher realms of the mind. We should not cease to pray to the Father in the name of Christ Jesus. He said, "Man ought always to pray." Prayer lifts our thoughts on high and sets us free from the narrow limits of matter, just as the electric spark is lifted and carried by the ether and caught by any receptive station. Spiritually minded people are being united today, as in the past, by zones of spiritual force that will eventually become the permanent thought atmosphere of the planet. In Revelation, this is typified as the New Jerusalem descending out of the heavens into the earth. Jesus said we could ask whatsoever we wished in his name, and it should be done unto us. Verily, verily, I say unto you, if ye shall ask anything of the Father, he will give it you in my name. Hitherto have ye asked nothing in my name. Ask, and ye shall receive, that your joy may be made full. Jesus taught in Proverbs because the people did not understand that spiritual forces, acting through mind, make race conditions. But he told them, "The hour cometh, when I shall no more speak unto you in dark sayings, but shall tell you plainly of the Father." The time prophesied by Jesus, in which we should plainly understand the character of the Father, is now at hand, and it behooves all Christians to come out of parables and to realize that scientific laws govern the material, mental, and spiritual realms of being. Pray without ceasing. In everything give thanks, wrote Paul to the Thessalonians. The idea is that we shall be persistent in prayer. We know that it is always the will of the air to give us all that we can breathe into our lungs. Jesus compared the Spirit to the air in describing the new birth to Nicodemus. It requires lung capacity to breathe deeply of the oceans of air, so it requires spiritual capacity to realize how accessible and ready the omnipresent Spirit is to fill us full of itself. The lack is with us. God is more willing to give than we are to receive. To acquire the mind that is always open to Spirit, we must be persistent in prayer. It is written in the 18th chapter of Luke, "And he spake a parable unto them to the end that they ought always to pray, and not to faint." He then told of the judge who feared not God nor man, yet who was worn out by the persistency of a woman who demanded justice. By experimentation, modern metaphysical healers have discovered a great number of laws that rule in the realms of mind, and they all agree that no two cases are exactly alike. Therefore, one who prays for health should understand that it is not the fault of the healing principle that his patient is not instantly restored. The fault may be in his own lack of persistency or understanding, or it may be due to the patient's dogged clinging to discordant thoughts. In any case, he must persist in his prayers until the walls of resistance are broken down and the healing currents are turned in. Metaphysicians often pray over a critical case all night. As history says, Luther prayed for the dying Melanchthon and brought about his recovery. Persistency in prayer awakens the spiritual consciousness and sets into perpetual glow the core of the soul. When this has been accomplished, one is in a constant state of thanksgiving and praising, and the joy of a conscious union with the creative mind is realized. End of article.